For the noise on the choice between the NDP's Rachel Notley and Conservative Danielle Smith. Notley will work for Trudeau and Singh, the NDP Liberal coalition bosses in Ottawa. She'll support higher carbon taxes on your gas, heat, and groceries. She'll help Trudeau attack the energy sector, putting you out of a job. And speaking of jobs, she'll raise taxes on job creators, pushing you onto the unemployment lines. That'll mean a weaker economy with less money for schools and hospitals. On the other hand, Conservatives will fight the carbon tax, stand up for Alberta and its energy sector, and unleash the full potential of our Alberta economy in order to grow and prosper in the future. That means more money for schools and hospital. In other words, vote for Alberta, vote Conservative, vote early, vote now.
And vote often.
Vote a lot, vote repeatedly, and block infrastructure. I'm joking. Gee. It's really interesting. The responses to that, obviously, the last time we saw a political rally in Calgary that was similarly sized was at Spruce Meadows, and it was Pierre coming down. I think it was 3,000 plus at that event. So generally among Conservatives, obviously in the polling, he is quite liked. Now, I know some people who are concerned about Danielle Smith maybe leaning a little bit left or a little bit progressive or mainstream compared to what they supported in the leadership. That's kind of the only criticism I've heard of this. But generally, this endorsement seems to be a positive one. I know a lot of people last night, there was some rumor spreading at the event that there was going to be a surprise guest, which I didn't hear from anyone other than people there. But a bunch of people thought Pierre was going to show up, and they were very excited for that. So I think that this is a strong indicator. Pierre obviously polling quite well here in Calgary compared to Trudeau. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's unsurprising. You assume that the federal Conservative Party leader is going to endorse the Conservative leader here for victory. But I think it will alleviate, some people who are like, people who are skeptical of her. Establishment Conservatives are probably more skeptical of her than freewheeling Conservatives like me. I think this actually will help them. Cast a vote for her, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly. That's almost the inverse of the point I made. If people on the fringes are a little more like, I don't know about this mainstream thing, people within the party, and I think that is probably a group you want to win over. There probably are undecided moderates who like Pierre and have bought into some of the media spin that Danielle is so kooky. To have someone like that weigh in, and then to the next extent, someone who's definitely very establishment has also endorsed Danielle Smith. And it's not entirely common. It's not uncommon either, but to have former leaders step in. But Stephen Harper has also offered his endorsement.
Twice.
It's interesting. Twice. It's really interesting to see, though, like all the fake former Conservatives that the NDP are rolling out. Despite the fact that they've been not conservative for a very long time. Here are actual Conservatives.
Sorry, you know who's doing a really funny job of this? Okay, so I think we're referring to Thomas Lukaszuk that you're talking about, who he's voting for the NDP now. Thomas Lukaszuk was a Alison Redford cabinet minister from the old Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta. And I forget the tens of thousands of dollars he ran up in cell phone fees on a single trip to Europe. I think it was like 60 or 80,000. It was something enormous, right? He was so entrenched in the old corruption of the former Progressive Conservatives that he played a very strong role in bringing the party down and thus electing the NDP and giving us 4 years of just absolute misery. He was part of that debacle. And so now, though, he's endorsing the NDP as a former Conservative. I don't even think he was ever actually a Conservative. I think his only ideology was power. And that's how you got elected in Alberta was you just sort of hooked your cart to the Progressive Conservatives. On the flip side, I see Raj Sherman is running for the UCP. And I think Raj Sherman was a Liberal at one point. And he's had a bit of a come to Jesus moment. Which is fine. I know people are skeptical, but we're out there evangelizing the good word of personal responsibility, freedom, and conserving cultural attributes, and if we get a convert, I think we should welcome them into the fold until they prove to us otherwise. And so, yeah, Raj Sherman, on the flip side, he's like, yeah, I was one of them, and yikes. So anyway, by the way, Brad Tennant, former UCP staffer, so funny on Twitter. He's doing a great job of saying, like, as a former NDPer, this, and that, and as a former
people don't get that
NDP,
he's joking.
I know.
Yeah, it's so funny
because he's so good at it. But anyway, I'll shut up. You were making a point.
He said, "Media, send me a message for a quote," and I'm going to send him one for sure. Harper clip,
yeah,
right?
I think we were Harper clip. Yeah, please. Sorry.
Yeah.
Fellow Albertans, after some tough years, our province has finally recovered from the last NDP term. But Rachel Notley is promising to undo all that progress. The NDP is promising to hike taxes on job creators by 38%, a massive hike that would kill tens of thousands of jobs. Rachel Notley tried a similar tax hike the last time she was premier. Investment fled our province and mass layoffs ensued. It's no wonder Rachel Notley doesn't want to talk about her record as premier. Nor does Rachel Notley want to talk about the fact that the Trudeau Liberals are voting NDP in this election. Rachel Notley and Justin Trudeau are a combination that puts Alberta's economy at great risk. In this election, there's only one option to protect the economic livelihoods of you and your family. That's Danielle Smith and the United Conservative Party. Thanks for listening.
God, he looks good.
Yeah.
He looks good. He looks healthy. His skin looks great. He looks good. Look at him.
You know that, and I think that this endorsement too, it's to the point you made earlier, for those people who are on the fence, or those people who have bought some of this. I mean, listen, the fact with Danielle Smith is she was on a talk show where she asked questions. We talked a little bit earlier about paying to see a doctor. Mm-hmm. She was on a talk show discussing, and she said, does the government really need to pay for every doctor visit? That's called a question. And that's what you often do when you're engaging in conversations. I know the NDP doesn't like taking questions, and they don't seem to understand how conversations work, but that's what was happening on that show. But people did see lots of those clips, did hear that. Often we throw back to this lake of fire incident terminology, which now apparently if you do anything or question anything, you're right along those lines. But having people like Stephen Harper, like Pierre Poilievre, a number of other folks coming out, mainstream conservatives, and endorsing Danielle Smith, I think does win those people over. And I think it really does matter, because if we're willing, if Albertans are willing to buy into that sort of pushed narrative, the fear-mongering, the characterization of Danielle Smith as extreme. Danielle Smith is very socially progressive. I don't agree with her on a lot of those issues, but she has a libertarian bent within her, so she tends to want to leave people alone, which I agree with, and she tends to just want to give people opportunities by cutting taxes, by creating jobs, by bringing people in to the province who want to work, by bringing businesses into the province to create jobs and opportunities. That's what I think she wants to focus on. If there is an extreme person or an extreme party in this election, it's not Danielle Smith, it's not the UCP, it's Rachel Notley and some of her active communist, anti-oil lobby, anti-Alberta friends who are literal active communists. That is what the media should have been focusing on as the extremist concerns. I had a few people last night saying they wish the UCP would have gone after them, would have. I mean, they pointed it out, but unlike the NDP, they weren't harping on this. But I think the UCP wanted to stick to this. You know what? We're not going to get into dirty politics. We're going to focus on, here's our policies. Here's what's working for the province. They can sling mud. We've got work to do. From what I hear, most people, that is resonating well with them. We'll see on an election night if that play was worth it, or if they should have gambled more with some active attack style campaigns. But I for one appreciate it's more like old school Canadian politics where you're arguing about your best idea. We saw Jean Chrétien was actually likely to lose the election, and someone made a comment about his face, a personal attack, and after that it actually swept. And that's why he became the leader of this country. That used to be the state of Canadian politics. If you went after somebody, it was considered low, it was considered dirty. The media have not been decrying the NDP for all of these personal attacks, for overt and evidenced and what can be clearly certified in court as lying, or at least omissions of the truth. They've not been criticized or attacked in any way, shape, or form. So I hope that Albertans are a little more old school, a little bit more the way politics used to be, and I hope they see through that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that Harper will bring to the table is it harkens back to the times when politics were boring. And I miss that. I miss his boring clothes, and I miss his Lego man hair, and I miss his boring sweaters that he sometimes wore, and his droning voice. But he was smart. I mean, he was an accountant. The most interesting thing about him is that he foster parented a chinchilla at one point. Like, that was the most outrageous thing he drank a Bombay, which was like, I was like, ew, Bombay. What are you, 17 and named Bailey? And you're a cheerleader. But yeah, he drank a Bombay once, and I was like, that's a little, I like him less now all of a sudden. But it harkens back to the times when politics were boring and grown up, and it's definitely not grown up these days. And I think that endorsement from Harper will also alleviate some of the fears of Kenney loyalists, because we know Kenney was intensely loyal to Stephen Harper, and Danielle Smith was a big critic of Jason Kenney. And in the before times, before she came back into politics, and after. And so the fact that he's there to sort of, I think maybe that's the second endorsement, is sort of to heal those divisions. It might help.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.